Daryl came back with tossed salads and scrambled eggs. And it was like, what the hell is that? And because he had to explain it, I didn't know. All I could think of was, we got to do better than this. This is too weird. And he said, no, there are things that are mixed up. And it was like, oh, yeah, right.
You're listening to Music Dialogue. Hear the stories behind iconic theme songs, scores, and jingles directly from the composers and music supervisors who made them happen. In this episode, composer Bruce Miller tells the story behind composing the Frasier theme, Tossed Salads and Scrambled Eggs. He also talks about his extensive work as an arranger and composing the music for shows like Wings, Becker, and The Odd Couple.
I was always kind of in awe of the arrangers. And it was just one of those things where it was just like the coolest thing, And I would picture Hank Mancini, walking down Sunset Boulevard into a studio with his briefcase, until I realized that that's all silly because you don't need a briefcase when you go to a date. They have pencils there, and the copyist brings the music over. So you really bring nothing. I used to carry a little bag that had just like some, a few pieces of music paper in case I needed something. But it was like the suit and tie and briefcase was kind of a myth. But I loved that. And so anyway, I always loved those guys. And I had friends of mine in Detroit that were arrangers, and Motown was starting to get big. And guys were doing arrangements for them. And so I honestly, again, it was like I just kind of learned by the seat of my pants, by watching guys and talking to friends, and starting off very, very iffy. I mean, I think about some of the first things that I wrote, and they were just, but it was a start. And the thing is, I like the whole idea of that. And it's funny because to this day, like if I'm hearing something that I've written, if I want to enjoy it, if it's something I like and everything, I probably am more pleased by listening to the arrangement I wrote than by the composition that the arrangement is of. Being composer is fine. It's been great, but I get off on hearing the chart that I wrote more than anything. And anyway, so I did that. And then when I was just finishing college, I was on a show playing guitar at a place called the Elbow Casino in Windsor, Ontario, right across the bridge from Detroit. And Paul Anka came through, the singer. And after a couple of nights, he asked me if I wanted to go on the road with him to play guitar. So, yeah, it'd be great. I didn't know any different. And so I spent like that year making a lot of tours with him. Well, one thing about Paul, he always went for the best arrangers. His group was Torrey Zito and Bill Potts and Don Costa and God, I mean, on and on and on. He the best of the best. And so I met these guys, and I would corral them in a coffee shop at Caesar's Palace and ask them questions, and that's kind of how I learned. My one scholastic thing is I bought Hank Mancini's Sounds and Scores, which I still recommend to young arrangers to this day. It's just great. You hear it, it shows. It's not going to teach you any style except about his, but it's just such a blue chip study, just going through that thing. But so anyway, so I did that, and then I had to go in the service, so I had to leave him and leave college also because it was Vietnam time, and I was 1A. So I auditioned for a band in Colorado called the Norad Band, and it was basically a jazz band. And I flew out there with all my instruments and auditioned and panicked because otherwise it was going to be Vietnam. Anyway, I passed the audition. And so I spent the next 2 years and 9 months there, and made a lot of good friends, a lot of guys I still work with out here that I just kept in contact with. And then when I left, I had talked to Paul, and he wanted me to come back. And I wanted to come back as a conductor, not just as a guitar player. So somehow or other, he said, yeah. And I ended up being his music director for 3 years. and played guitar along with it. Eventually got to the point where I wasn't even playing anymore. Like we had another guitar player, and I just was conducting, and he moved me to New York. He wanted me to, to kind of do whatever music director duties there were, And so I lived there, and then at a certain time, after about 3 years, I decided enough of this, and I just wanted to get off the road and all that stuff. So I told him I was going to leave, and I did it at a good time when we didn't have anything booked for a couple months. Actually, I did that. I had met my wife at that time and wanted to get married, so I basically left him and came out to L.A. and found a place to live, and said I wasn't going to take any work for the first like 3 weeks or so because I really wanted to get the apartment straight. Well, the first call came after about a year, so it was rough. But in the meantime, I got married, and I was playing in some big bands, some friends' bands and stuff. One thing led to another. I just kept writing, kept wanting to write, and it took a while. Then all of a sudden, I was an arranger. And again, if I sound so vague, like these things just happened, they kind of just happened. And I was I got my first call to write an arrangement on a record, a real record, from a producer named Bob Crew, who was friends with an old friend of mine who was an old producer at Motown, Harry Balk. And Harry told Bob about me. I met Bob, and we did this record. It was called Get Dancin', with a guy who was like this amazing hairdresser from New York, Puerto Rican guy, and he wasn't a singer at all, but it was this disco thing, and disco was happening, and the record was huge. And I actually played I played all the guitars on the record. We did an album, and then one thing led to another, and next thing I knew, I was writing. That was kind of it. It was like I say, there was like no decision made at a time. It was just doing it, and can I do it? Then, of course, when I came out here and I heard the way some of these guys were writing, it was daunting because it's like these guys are, I'm trying to compete with Igor Stravinsky, and I'm like D's and Do's, if you know what I mean. But I got lucky. I kind of figured it out and learned as I went, and that's how I did it.
You have a really long list of credits on records, and a lot of them as arranger, which you've been talking about a little bit. Can you describe what the role of an arranger is for people that don't completely understand what that means?
An arranger, basically, the arranging that I did, we would do rhythm arrangements, obviously, but a lot of times in records, they wouldn't even use an arranger for that. They'd have a little thing. They'd just have somebody sketch something out, and they'd work it out. My job came in when they wanted to put like strings or horns on it. And so I would listen to what they had done. I'd listen to the rhythm and the vocal, maybe a rough vocal, but whatever, a vocal. And then I would just decide what I wanted the strings or horns to sound like. And I'd write them out and go and conduct the session. I would, get a contractor and tell them the musicians I wanted. And that was really it. And of course, out here, we were forced to work pretty fast. It was some of these guys were really fast, and I learned how to. We do 3-4 string charts overnight, and then do the horns the next night. So it was crazy, but that's basically what an arranger does. Otherwise, for a full orchestra, I'd write all the parts to the orchestra and get them in there. Back then, there were no mock-ups like there are now, where now it's everything MIDI, and everybody wants to hear every last note and every last emotional bit of whatever from the music before they go in and record the orchestra. Back then, you got what you got. There wasn't anything like that. So we'd write the arrangement, go in the studio, and that'd be it, and hope the producer was happy. But that's really what the arranger does. Generally conducts their own work. The business has changed now a lot because a lot of people that are writing music, especially like for television and film and stuff like that, a lot of these people don't know how to write an arrangement. they don't do that. They can do things on the computer, but they do a little. It could be anything from just a ridiculous little chord to a little melody to a great sketch, and then they give it to an orchestrator, somebody like me, to which I don't do that much. I don't really do much of that for the other composers. When the other composers have called me, it's actually been to just write an arrangement and get credit and all that stuff. But now a lot of these guys just give it to the orchestrator, and all of a sudden, what was very simple now is John Williams. So it's the complexion has changed so much in the last 10, 15 years, especially.
Yeah. How has from your perspective of seeing technology change from where you said that, you were probably handwriting and giving the musicians something that was set in stone, to now you kind of have this problem of there are infinite possibilities because of Pro Tools and, all these different programs. How has that changed the process working on something more recently?
Totally changed the process. Whole different animal now. I'm very lucky in that I really love the technology, the new technology, and I drive my friends crazy sending them stuff with samples. And how do you like that? And, I've got this library and I'm doing this and it does that. And, how real does it sound? And I just enjoy that. On the other side of the coin, when it comes to my work, now everything that I do requires sending something in before it's locked in stone. Even if the final product will be coming out of my studio with the machines and not live players, it's still, everybody wants to hear it all before they commit to it. So now this has enabled people to put out calls. I have a son that's great, does a lot of work, and one of the things he's gotten himself in this little niche of doing commercials. Well, he gets a call for commercials, people that really like him, but he finds out he's up against 3 other guys or 10 other people to do it. And they're all doing the stuff and sending it in and hoping whatever sticks to the wall goes. So that's where it's all changed now, because now you can have anybody with a computer that understands the process at least throw their hat in the ring, because it's right there, and if you're real technically savvy, you can do something. It may not work. It may not be great technically. That doesn't really matter anymore. You don't have to be a musical scholar to have a great career and to be good. It still comes down to your innate ability, but the tools now are so daunting that you can do anything. And so that's what's different about it now. Is it now the scrutiny is so much different. Back then you'd be in a studio with a big orchestra, and a producer would want to change something, and so there was a finite amount of changing you could do with the people sitting there without calling it a day and rewriting the whole thing, or if they would want to call somebody else in. That hasn't happened yet, but I always worry. But now it's like everything is so manipulable. It's just incredible. So the whole complexion of what we do has changed right now.
In 1990, you worked on the TV show Wings that went on for 8 seasons, which is quite a long time. Can you talk about your role on that show?
Yeah, there was. I got a call actually the end of the first season. No, I didn't. I got a call at the beginning of the second season to take over the show. They had somebody that whatever they wanted to make a change. So I came on then, and then continued the show for the rest of the time. They had a theme. There was a Schubert piece that I did updated an arrangement to, and then wrote all the transition music, whatever they wanted, and we'd record. I don't know, maybe a couple episodes in a session, every couple of weeks or so, and that was it. It was a great job, and the creators were just terrific. I mean, I have nothing but great memories on that show. I had a music editor, Chip Swanson, who uh, comes with a great reputation, but just he was like a brother. He still is, and he made sure that he just took all the pressure off. He made sure that everything fit. If anybody recut something, instead of me having to redo it or worrying about it, he just deal with it. It was that whole situation was great. Wings was terrific.
And so that show, I think, was maybe had some similar people on it that led you into working on the hit Kelsey Grammer show, Frasier.
Yes.
Can you tell the story behind writing the opening theme and then the end credit Tossed Salad and Scrambled Eggs song?
Yeah, sure. They were actually all the Wings people. And I had been doing Wings already for a couple of years, few years, whatever it was. And when they came up with Frasier, it was, and these guys were all ex-Cheers people. They came from Cheers to Wings and then Frasier. And so I got a call to compete against two other people, which kind of bugged me. It was like, yeah, I've been working for you guys already for 3 years or whatever, and I still can't get hired. I've got to go up against other people. So it wasn't the worst thing in the world, but I understood. They wanted options, and they just described what he was like. They described some music that they kind of liked. So what I did was I wrote the song actually pretty much as it is. I don't think I made really any significant changes at all to it. Getting the lyrics, which I credit for having gotten the gig, I called my friend Daryl Finnessy, who's just a brilliant singer, quirky, amazing lyric writer. I mean, just most talented guy. He's just too talented. And I gave it to him and told him, I said, we got this guy. He's a shrink, and he lives with his father, and he's got his brother around, and this and that, and that's what he did. So anyway, Daryl came back with Tossed Salads and Scrambled Eggs, and it was like, what the hell is that? And because he had to explain it, I didn't know. All I could think of was, we got to do better than this. This is too weird. And he said, no, there are things that are mixed up, and it was like, oh yeah, right, yeah. His Frasier's patients are people that were mixed up, and it was like, I hear the blues are calling. People are sad. They call into him. He had a talk show, radio talk show, Touchdown Scrambled Eggs. Seem a bit confused, maybe, but I got you pegged. And confusion, the people. But I don't know what to do with those tossed salads and scrambled eggs. They're calling again. All these mixed up people. It was just a stroke of genius. I mean, and that was all Daryl. So anyway, I got the call from one of the producers and said, we want you. You got the job. It was great. So it was very exciting. And which led to, I mean, it was just, that's a kind of a career and life changer when you get something of that magnitude. But it was very simple. So anyway, the style of the show, I had a band, an all-star band, like 5 guys that were the best in the world. And it's a little jazzy thing. And then they decided to use a song at the end of the show rather than the beginning, which surprised everybody, but that's cool. So they wanted just a little snippet of just a taste of what it is, just to get into the show. And anyway, long story short, that got into, I think I did about 24, 25 of those little things. And they would just alternate them depending upon what the opening graphic was. Sometimes the graphic would be the little helicopter going by, or, fireworks, or whatever it was. And it all on the background of the Seattle skyline. So it worked out great. And it was great because I had a main title, I had half of an end credit, and there was no transition music in that show. They just opted to not do that, which was fine. I mean, it worked. And so the only time I would really talk to them was when there was like special music to be done. We did some episodes where I had some big orchestras doing some, special stuff. But other than that, that was kind of it. So it was, that was just a great call to get.
Did you work with Kelsey at all when they recorded his vocals or like any of that sort of process, or did he just go off and do his own thing?
No, I mean, I was there, but uh, I mean, it was Kelsey. I mean, he did what uh, the interpretation was all him. And, I taught him the song, but he's a very talented guy. I mean, uh, he just kind of knew what to do. He understood, he understood the way it was. And then at the very end, he even does this little tag, "Good night, Seattle, we love you," or whatever it is. And, I mean, that was his. And so that stuff kind of stayed in, and the producers were so cool that if there was something that was cool, they found a way to accommodate it if possible. They'd rather try to make it fit in than to have us be changing stuff for the sake of down to the frame, or something spilled over into something else. They'd accommodate it and recut it for that. But Kelsey just made that song his own, and so, I mean, nobody said a word to him. The one thing that was very tough, we lost somebody that was, I mean, the most brilliant producer, writer, a man named David Angel. I was actually on the airplane that went into the tower in New York on that horrible day. And that was a real shock. I mean, this guy was the nicest, most talented to this day. Everybody still talks about him in glowing terms and with love. And I think about him. When I think of Frasier, I think about him. The other producers were terrific at all. David had two partners, David Lee and Peter Casey, who were great. I mean, they were just a great team. But they got the cream of the crop of writers on that show, and that great experience. Just,
Yeah.
couldn't be better.
Did you have any idea at the time that it would become such a memorable piece of TV music?
No, not at all.
When later on did you kind of realize that this was? It's like you said. It's when you hear the lyrics, it's kind of
Oh, they're so out there. Yeah, it's like,
yeah.
crazy. Uh, it just kind of, I got an Emmy nomination for it, and didn't win, but got the nomination. So the song did get some notice. And then it's funny because I was talking to one of the writers, who's a good friend of mine, a writer named Ken Levine. He's just another Cheers guy, just one of the top guys, and he was commenting to me that, I don't know if it's on his blog or there was something where he said that the most write-ins about Frasier have to do with tossed salads and scrambled eggs of any other subject on the show. And it was amazing to me. It was like, created a monster here. But it was, it just kind of went that way. And it's funny because I noticed things where they, even like the Facebook groups, there's a group called Tossed Salads and Scrambled Eggs. And people refer to the show in that vein. And so it's one of those things that I'd like it to happen again. I'd like to get more of those.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I'm not, I'm not dissatisfied or just very happy with the way that went. It was pretty wild.
So, I've talked to lots of composers now who have written some of these really memorable TV themes, and maybe it's just something that you did, but so many people know about that song. And does that mean anything to you that you contributed to this piece of TV history, or is it just something that happened?
No, I'm very proud of it, and I'm very humbled by it, because it wasn't written to get this kind of notoriety, because I never expected that. I'm not a performer. I'm not I'm not, I don't have a publicist. I don't even have an agent. I'm just kind of on my own. I keep a low profile. I mean, I got a great family and I'm close to them. I love the music, and I'm always up here doing something in my studio. But you kind of don't plan for that. I mean, actually, I do know some people that absolutely aim. They take aim, close aim, at trying to trying to be famous, trying to be celebrity. That's okay. But for me, it was just the work. Being accepted by my peers is far and away better than anything else. If somebody that I respect, appreciates something I've done, that's the best thing I can get for my ego, as opposed to having my name on a billboard on Sunset Boulevard.
So let's fast forward a little bit to just a few years ago. There's a show, The Odd Couple, on CBS.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a show that you composed with your son?
I worked on it with my son. We did. The Odd Couple was a brilliant movie and a great television show, everything, several decades ago. And so they revived it. And it was pretty much a foregone conclusion. They were going to continue to use that theme, the original theme. They just wanted to update it. So what they did was they got this band, the Southern band called Trombone Shorty, and had them do a version. We did one. They wanted to go with this. I think they'd like the little more celebrity of it. My take on that song, if anybody knows the Odd Couple theme, Jason and I did just a track, a basic track, but I wanted to get, if they could, Stevie Wonder to play harmonica on it. So if you can picture that song being played by the harmonica with just a very cool urban track, they opted to go another way. So basically they did that, and then we just wrote the transition music. We were not very involved in the show as far as we didn't have a lot of input, but it was fine. We did what they asked, and we did everything in the style of the Trombone Shorty band. And I think we got pretty close. I think they were happy with it, and it was fine, but didn't have a lot of input on it really. But Jason and I did it, and it's great collaborating with him, because he's just we kind of work off each other and have different skill sets. So that was another opportunity for us to do that. So it's always easier when he's around.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what was that a really great opportunity to get to co-compose with your son, and have you done other projects together?
It's the best. Jason started off as a guitar player, a blues guy. And he was a kid. He won this blues guitar contest. He played like Stevie Ray Vaughan. I mean, he was just amazing. He was just a kid. And he beat out all these guys, all these older guys. And I was asked to do a show called Becker. It was at Paramount. And in a nutshell, John Becker, the doctor, was just a real crusty guy, real grumpy and rough. And it was a great hysterical show, had some great people on it. And Ted Danson was the star. He played John Becker. And the producer, who's a friend of mine, Dave Hackle, wanted something rough like that. So I came up with this track, and then I thought like a Stevie Ray kind of thing would be great, because that music, has a certain aggression to it, a certain, it's aggressive like Dr. Becker. And so Dave liked the idea. And so what I did is I called a couple of the real top studio guys in town and tried a couple of demos. They were great. I mean, God, these guys just whatever. But producer thought it sounded studio. It sounded like studio players. So his suggestion was, he said, how about your son? Because Jason did the first original demo, just a little quick thing that I just sent over just to see, is this in the ballpark? And he liked it, but then it was a matter of doing the final. And after a couple of studio guys started to get frustrated already, because they weren't buying what I was selling. And so the creator of the show said, could Jason do this? And I said, I guess, I don't know. I mean, he doesn't read music. He was real green at the time. He was going to UCLA. So he would actually, he was living down there and we're up in the valley. And so he would, live there, went every week or whenever we scored the show. He'd come home. I'd have tracks all ready, all done. I would just point to him where to play and when to play. And he would just tear it up. And then he'd leave, go back to school. And I'd see him again, a couple of weeks later. But we've always been very close anyway. I got two boys that are great. But so he did that. And that was the first collaboration I did with him. And then he started just learning. Again, he's a little bit like me, like the seat of his pants. He didn't learn a lot of the technical stuff I do, but he's very current. In his own right, he's done some terrific things. He's written songs, produced, scored things, and gotten to the point now where he's formidable. I mean, I can't ask him to go and do a big orchestra thing, but it's interesting. I can play him a big orchestra thing, and he can hear things I don't even hear. There can be mistakes in the middle of the whole thing. Just one little rub, something, a bass note, something, and he'll call me on it. So since then, over the years, he's grown to actually be a legitimate, creator and composer and producer of music. Very, very creative. And the point I was making was that he keeps me current. Because if I was always the cool young guy back when I first started doing this stuff. With what he does, if I've got to do something that's real, that's something that's very, very current, I know that if I'm doing it with him, I know that it's going to hold up. It's going to be totally legit. It's going to be right, and not going to be like the old guy trying to be cool. So it works out great. And then, like when he does his commercials, for example, if he needs like some strings or horns, he'll call me, an hour and a half before he needs it, and say, can you knock a quick thing out for me? He'll send me over a track. I'll throw some strings and horns on it. He'll scrutinize it to death, and then finally, buy it. And so we have this kind of symbiotic relationship. Plus the fact he's really a great guy. I have two boys that are both. I mean, my other son Jordan is a sports marketing guy, and he's done just ridiculous creative things. He was at Red Bull for 9.5 years, just creating these events and crazy. He's really wacky. So yes, I mean, I've got two creative sons, and they're both doing fine. And but Jason's the one that I happen to be able to work with because he does what I do.
You've been really successful in an unconventional profession. How much of the success do you attribute to luck, and how much of it was hard work?
Honestly, I think it's probably, I was going to say 50-50, but knowing the business as I do, I would say maybe 70-30 with the emphasis on luck. I mean, I think you have to be prepared. You really do. But then again, there's so many people that are not that prepared that just do great. I would say just the way things are now, probably 70-30. Again, the technology gives everybody a chance to throw their hat in the ring. Whereas before, the way things were before, it was much harder. There were still people we used to call hummers. There were still back then. And I'm not referring to, I've got colleagues of mine that are dear friends that are not especially trained in the art of like orchestration and the detail of all that stuff, but they've done their homework and they know what to do and who to call to get it done, and not just to farm it out. They know how to get it done, in collaboration, true collaboration. There's others that don't do anything. They literally have 10 people they call, and they do nothing but really just direct them. I would say that's got to be luck, that if they're going to make a lot of money and be very successful by really not knowing a lot of what they're doing. So a lot of it's luck. I'm very candid about that.
What does an average workday look like for you today? And, let's say during the pandemic, what has the last year looked like for you?
Oh God. I mean, it's completely, of course, we've been staying in but we're lucky. I mean, I have a nice place to stay and I've got a nice studio in the house that I can play with the toys and stuff. So, so I'm always around like that. I don't know. When I turn on all the computers and all the stuff, I turn them on earlier if I have to do something specific, or if I don't, I come wandering in here and ride my stationary bike, for a while in the morning and just kind of laze around. It's without going out, it's tough. I'm used to being able to get out and see people and network and get people over here and do things. Now everything is remote, as we're doing right here. Everything is remote. And so the average day to me is like, I don't have a specific project right now. So because of that, I'm kind of just on my own, which is fine. It's like I always manage to have a good time here, because it's just, again, I love playing with the toys and I FaceTime with a lot of friends of mine. And so we do that, but it's real unnatural right now. This isn't like a working environment.
What advice would you give to aspiring composers that want to build a career in film or TV music?
Go to medical school. Honestly, what I would tell my son, what I tell anybody, learn to be as self-sufficient as you could possibly be. Learn your craft. And don't get into it because it's cool and count on other people to make you look good. Because generally, you'll get found out and you'll get in trouble. And I just know that I couldn't take the humiliation of, it's like you didn't do anything, It's like put yourself in a position where you can do as much as you can possibly do. And you're not going to get called for everything. But I mean, I've had so many experiences where it's like, I've never done that before. I did a couple of Bonanza movies of the week. I never wrote that kind of music before, but I did a quick study. I went and I picked up the right music for the definitive style and studied it, learned it, and then put it down and scored the movies. And they liked them. But it's like I learned how to do a quick study like that. So my best advice is do your homework and network with other people that even doesn't even have to be networking with the most successful people. You'll get your attention. You'll get, if you do something very well, somebody will hear it, find it. Hopefully you'll have the luck. But that's really it. Just learn. Don't ever lay back and say I can write some beats, and so that's gonna I'm gonna score the next Star Wars. It's not gonna happen.
Thank you so much, Bruce, for being a guest on the podcast. It was really great to talk to you. Thanks for listening to Music Dialogue. If you like what we're doing, please subscribe and leave a review wherever you download podcasts. The opening and end music used in this episode was composed by William Ryan Fritsch. You can hear more of his music at williamryanfritsch.com. Follow us on Instagram at Music Dialogue. We'll see you next time.